Hello, everyone. Today I'm joined by Selina Tobaccowala, CEO and founder of HomeBoost. Where are you dialing in from today, Selina?
I live in San Francisco in Noe Valley.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining the show. I'm super excited to kind of learn more about HomeBoost and what you're doing. So I'm looking forward to learning all about it. Before we kind of dive into the nitty gritty, could you just walk us through what is HomeBoost, what is the main product, and what is sort of the way it provides value to customers?
Absolutely. HomeBoost is a home energy platform, and we're really trying to help consumers both save money on their energy bills and live more comfortably. Our first product is a Boost Box, and it's a DIY home energy assessment kit. We send the consumer a thermal camera, a black light. We pair it with our HomeBoost app. It takes them about 30 minutes to scan their home. And then we use a bunch of AI and computer vision to provide them personalized, actionable recommendations. So things like leaky windows, smart thermostat, an appliance overview, and really give them that whole home energy assessment for a much reduced price than bringing somebody into your house.
Wow, that's super fascinating. Have you always been in the climate change space? What was your background prior to starting HomeBoost?
I'm a serial entrepreneur. My first startup was called Evite, which was right out of college, so an undergrad at Stanford. And then I went on to do a bunch of consumer tech products. I was the president and CTO at SurveyMonkey. I started another app called Gixo, which is a health and fitness app, which got bought by Beachbody. So no, I was absolutely new to the climate space. This is my first startup in this arena.
Nice. So, but it always sounds like you're kind of in, I guess, the health, wellness, consumer space. So it doesn't seem like it was that far of a leap, perhaps.
Yeah, my passion is really around how you use technology to make a difference for the consumer in the real world. It's a versus necessarily keeping people online. So that's really been the trajectory of what I've worked on.
Fascinating. Could you walk us through who your typical customers are? You kind of described that it's a little bit cheaper to do this than, say, bringing somebody in. So is it targeted at a certain customer segment? Just kind of curious about that.
Absolutely. Our target customer is really any U.S. homeowner. In the US in summer of 2024, bills were the highest it had been in 10 years. And Americans are now spending on average 20% of their income on heating and cooling. When we think about our personas, we really think about there's the sort of Home Depot person who wants to DIY. There's the mom CFO who's paying her electricity bills, watching them rise. And she's the one who doesn't necessarily like going to the car mechanic because she doesn't understand what's happening. So really empowering that female to understand their bills, as well as the climate enthusiasts who know they want to electrify.
It sounds like you have this number in terms of the way costs have increased, and especially around inflation. I imagine that's sort of the big driver of that. Have you guys then been able to measure the impact created from HomeBoost, from the box itself? Are people now able to save on average 10%? Kind of curious to understand where those savings or ROI ultimately come from.
We're still pretty early as far as having a bunch of case studies, but we have a couple of case studies. We have one woman, for example, who has both caulked her windows. All she did was focused on the weatherization improvements she could DIY. And her November bill year over year was $100 cheaper.
Wow. And that, I assume, kind of will continue for a long time, correct?
The savings are compounded. So it was a 25% savings on her bill. And we're just seeing that consistently. People are seeing between 10 to 20% savings on their bill if they take the actions that we're recommending.
Talking about those actions, what are the typical easy fixes or fixes in general that the box tends to recommend that people do for their homes?
There's really a set of sort of easy fixes. So there's the upgrading your smart thermostat. There's looking at your HVAC filter. Like I said, there's sort of the weather stripping and caulking that you can do on your basic envelope. And then there's the things that generally have very strong ROI, but require a contractor. And that example is insulation. Most homes, 8 out of 10 homes in the US are under insulated. So if you can add, whether it's insulation on your garage ceiling, on your attic, all of that dramatically reduces your bill and has a very positive, what we call SIR, which is savings over investment ratio.
Is there an output to the box that you could share with, say, like a contractor for maybe some of those like heavier lifts, so that you need somebody else to kind of actually come in and install the solution?
Yeah, so on certain categories, that's already built, which is we give you the ability to sort of take the imagery as well as the home facts and export that to give to a contractor to go get bids. And we provide the consumer a punch list of what they should expect. So if you get two bids, it's not necessary that the cheaper one is always the right one. So for example, with insulation, the right way to do it is you actually have to air seal and then add the insulation. So if somebody doesn't have that component, it might look cheaper, but it's actually going to be much less effective. We provide you that punch list. We don't have that yet for all of the categories, but we're working through that in 2025.
Is that almost like a recommended product list or a recommended fix? I mean, would you go down to that detail of saying this is the best in class insulation? I mean, it sounds like you kind of have the process down. Are you guys thinking about maybe certain products? Because if I'm as a consumer, window caulking, for example, like I have no idea what's a good or bad window caulk. Is that sort of like an educational thing that you guys are maybe thinking about into the future?
We really provide three types of recommendations. The first is the product recommendation, like a smart thermostat. We help answer a few questions like, do you prefer sort of your Amazon system, your Google Home system? And we really try to recommend a specific product. The second type of recommendation is where we highly recommend getting a contractor. And that example that I gave was insulation. It's an HVAC. And in that scenario, we are not recommending a specific product. We're recommending for you to go get a couple of quotes and providing you that detail. And then the third type of recommendation is something where, depending if you tell us if you're very DIY or you're not so DIY, where it's either we're giving you very specific instructions. So part of our results is a personalized video where we cut for you exactly where on your window, for example, you would need to add the weather stripping or caulking, and we provide you that deep instruction. Or we tell you, go get a handyman if you tell us you're the type of person who's never going to touch your own windows.
How do you actually go about generating those very detailed recommendations? And you mentioned that you're sort of integrating AI, at least into the upfront analysis. Is it AI then kind of like editing a video to show you where, or is there people behind the scenes that are cutting and making that detailed video for the consumer?
It is a mix of AI and human enabled today. Some of the pieces we can automatically do with AI and computer vision and make all those recommendations. A very simple example of that is a thermostat, because there is enough thermostat imagery out there that we can train our models. For all of our thermal imaging, we are still training our models in terms of being able to automate all of those recommendations. And then in order to provide to the consumer those things, currently there's still a human in the loop.
Very cool, though, to see you kind of already bringing in the computer vision parts on both the front end and on the back end. I kind of now want to pivot a little bit to talking about doing the actual assessment itself and what goes into that. Could you just walk us through the consumer journey, maybe of I order the box on your website, it shows up at my front door, now what?
Yeah, so the Boost box will show up at your front door and it takes you about 30 minutes to scan your home. And obviously, coming from a consumer product and tech background, what we've tried to do is make it super user friendly and intuitive of how to scan your home. So the first key is really understanding what are the rooms that are uncomfortable. If there's specific rooms we know that are uncomfortable, we're going to have you start there. And we're going to pair that with things we know are common problems, like garage ceilings. You plug in the thermal camera, which comes in your Boost box, and you walk with the HomeBoost app through the room scan. And then some of it just requires the camera, like taking pictures of your thermostat, your appliances, and then we'll auto scan everything for you. Should be pretty intuitive to be able to quickly and easily collect that information.
You talk about taking pictures and scanning. Does it ask you, for example, like take a picture of all the caulking around your window and go through like the individual, like almost like a checklist to make sure you've kind of done all the individual pieces, or no?
Yeah. So in a room, we'll ask you not necessarily each corner of the window, but we will ask for pictures of the windows, any doors to exterior, and if it's the top floor, a ceiling. But we also have a little video where you'll see on the contrast of the thermal camera itself of like, hey, this looks off. We train you to be able to say, okay, if anything looks off, just take it, we'll process it. And then obviously for the stuff that doesn't require the thermal camera, it is really just snapping the images of things like your appliances and your HVAC system.
Is there any input, I guess, also that goes into it to say like, I have XYZ type of furnace or HVAC system?
For things like the HVAC system, again, we ask for a photo of it. If we can't recognize it, then we do ask for a couple more details.
Got it. Okay. I know you guys sort of made like the decision to have the box be you return it once you're done reusing it. And I imagine there's a big sustainability element to that. So you're not just sending people these boxes and then they sit there, but also a business model perspective. It raises the question, energy efficiency is a continuous sort of process. So have you thought about maybe developing a product or in the future making it so that I install this once in my house and I constantly get sort of like monthly energy audits to kind of see how I'm doing? Or what is sort of that both business model evolution and product evolution on that front?
Sure. So on the business model side, you're absolutely right. It's both a sustainability issue as well as keeping the cost down. You don't need to keep a thermal camera in your home. So by sending it back to us, we're able to offer HomeBoost for $99, which is a really good deal. And similarly, it's like you said, you don't want plastic just remaining in your home. To put like a permanent installation in your home, you're really talking about replacing your panel. And there are products that exist like that. They're just very expensive in like the thousands of dollars.
Got it. I now sort of want to change gears a little bit into the actual business part of the equation in terms of understanding your growth and sort of segments that you're targeting in the future. I know you guys are really like early in your journey, but maybe what have been the biggest growth drivers to date and maybe some of the barriers to growth that you're sort of like thinking about solving?
Yeah. So in terms of the biggest growth drivers to date, we're really focused on both a direct to consumer channel. So you're very traditional organic, social, earned media, paid media, as well as utilities provide home energy assessments often for their consumers. It's a little counterintuitive from a business perspective that utilities want people to save energy because that's what you're paying them for. But if you think about the capital costs to put an infrastructure for the utilities, they're actually very incented to have people reduce their energy consumption. Those are really the two key distribution channels that we're working on. I'd say with any direct-to-consumer business, distribution is by far the hardest challenge you will face. When you talk about barriers, it is exactly that, which is you really want to figure out what is your CAC, your acquisition cost versus your LTV, your lifetime value. And making that ratio strong is what will allow you to pour capital onto your business.
Have you guys right now, I imagine a lot of your sales are probably coming through, or all of your sales are coming through like the online channel. Have you thought about, you talk about sort of this DIY Home Depot type person. So maybe it seems like there's a fit to be in brick and mortar and for that person shopping for caulking at Home Depot, also sell them the HomeBoost while they're there and have that be a pickup and drop off point almost. Is that kind of in the future thoughts or?
Retail is definitely a channel that is very interesting. You really, because of the margins differential that you think about in retail, you really have to make sure you have the right price and the right product. So we don't want to learn in retail, but we do see it as a long-term approach for us.
Yeah. How have you gone about marketing the product today? Is it predominantly through Meta and Google or just word of mouth?
It's a mix of all of that. So organic social is very powerful right now, as well as starting our paid media and earned media. So it's really those traditional channels that we're going through, Meta, Google, also looking at podcasts. I think it's a really interesting way to reach homeowners.
Has there been sort of any thought about doing partnerships with certain companies making equipment or products for the home space for reducing your energy consumption? Because it feels like there's a little bit of like a natural fit there in some sense. You're advising people to get better caulk, maybe get out better insulation, HVAC, whatever the case may be. Is that a thought you're going down, or are you worried about maybe losing your impartiality if you start doing sort of partnerships that way?
We definitely want to long-term create a marketplace for consumers to help them further down that funnel. So right now we're like making you the recommendation for the contractor, and then we're saying like, good luck, go find someone. And, part of the reason we did that is because we want to make sure we could be national fast. So we are working, for example, with the Insulation Contractors Association to create a good directory of contractors. Our vision is still to create a very impartial experience to drive traffic towards the contractors. So it doesn't feel like that you're being upsold, but we do want to help that consumer because we will not get those savings on greenhouse gases. 20% of greenhouse gases are residential energy if we don't actually help the consumer through that next step.
Yeah. So I can almost think of it like a TaskRabbit integrated into it in some sense, right? Like I have a job and I kind of almost put it out there, or there's a list of people that I can solicit to get the required job. Is that the way you think about it?
Yeah, in some cases, it is trying to go get a handyman. In some cases, it's trying to go get a contractor. The space is also rapidly shifting. So if you look at a company like Quilt providing heat pumps, they're actually also providing all of the installation contractors associated to their product. So we also have to let the markets play out a little bit to understand in terms of who are the right people to actually connect a consumer to.
You've kind of already alluded to it a couple times in terms of features you're wanting to add in 2025 and beyond. Are there any specific ones that you want to call out that are maybe outside of the recommendation space? What are you guys looking to build in 2025?
One of the biggest things is being able to move that AI as we get models trained right into the app. The delightful experience that we're trying to build is you take that image of the window and in real time, we can tell you, hey, there's a leak on the bottom right. That is
Yeah.
just so exciting and so powerful, but that requires a lot of data for us to build those models. That's one area we're really, really investing in. And then just continuing to optimize the recommendations for people based upon their interests and their views. And then third, we talked about is really helping consumers down that product funnel to contractor funnel, connecting to that handyman. So really trying to build out those marketplaces.
That's super cool, I guess, like to be able to have that technology in your hand now. I know it's like a lot of companies are talking about doing AI at the edge, and it's cool to sort of see. You're always like, oh, what's the actual application of that? So here's one of the actual applications. That's very neat. In terms of segments, I mean, this is kind of going back to the business model. Sorry for hopping around a bit, but do you have any thoughts about going into the commercial segment at all? I know that's probably a little bit of a different market and probably much more bespoke, but obviously there's a huge sort of area also of building emissions is in like the commercial real estate sector. So curious if you have any thoughts there.
Yeah, so we don't have any current plans to go into the commercial sector. As an entrepreneur, one of your main things is to focus. So we're very focused on single family residential, and we're very focused right now on homeowners. I do think there's opportunity to move towards property managers, for example, who also have incentives and trying to figure out renters. I mean, renters is very hard because the landlord is the one doing the fixes and the renter is the one that's reaping the benefits. So from a financial model perspective, it's very hard.
Yeah. In terms of incentives, I think this is a big one given the recent election in terms of what's going to happen with that sector. I mean, is that sort of like a concern for you guys going forward? Is that maybe some of these incentives to replace your HVAC system and get a more clean one somewhat disappear and then maybe almost make that barrier and the whole process of sort of renovating your home as it relates to energy consumption a little bit more challenging or expensive?
Yeah, I mean, there's no question that there's some really strong benefits for consumers today. Even weatherization, there is a up to $1,200 rebate for all weatherization with the IRA bill. It does help consumers convert if they're savings. There's no question. Our understanding is that those rebates are really sort of through 2025 at the very least, because the money has been allocated towards the states. It is really a little bit of wait and see. I don't think it particularly affects our business model because we are taking into account those rebates when we calculate the savings to investment ratio. And the difference is certain fixes won't look good to do to the customer. It's going to be more expensive to do them. I think the other piece that is very interesting, which we'll have to see, is the effect if there are tariffs coming in and what it does to the price of the actual equipment, because that may actually have a greater impact than the rebates.
Sure. Are you guys basically using a contract manufacturer today to produce the equipment? I guess offshore in this case.
We're using the FLIR Teledyne thermal camera. We're using a third-party camera. Really, our innovation is really on the software and the app side and the personalized recommendations and video.
In terms of this business, you mentioned in the beginning that you're a serial entrepreneur, but every business is a little bit different. Even if you're in the consumer space, SurveyMonkey to your prior startup in the health space, they're all very different. And I think especially with this one, it being a physical product, maybe what are some of the most relevant lessons from your prior entrepreneurial experience versus maybe some of the things that are quite different with HomeBoost now?
Yeah, so I'd say one of the big things is really thinking about the capital structure. My very first startup with Evite, it was in the dot-com boom, and we raised $37 million for online invitations, which sounds a little ludicrous today. But it was at a very different time in history. But I think it's really trying to make sure you're thinking about what is the business model? How are you going to get to break even unit economics? And therefore, how much capital to raise? That's been something that More recent startups I've been a little bit more conscientious about. And then, as I mentioned, this whole question around really attacking the CAC over LTV becomes really important. Like one of the big learnings in health and fitness is trying to get people to exercise is really, really hard. Versus if you think about what on Beachbody's side, they really focused on weight loss, which is really going after sort of one of the pieces of vanity. That's really why here really focused on not talking to the customer about something like climate. We're really focused on we were going to help you save on your bill and we're going to help you be more comfortable in your own home. People are spending more time in their homes because of hybrid work. Home stock is getting older and one room is hot, one room is cold. That is what resonates with the customer. So it's really starting to think about what are those marketing messages that resonate and not necessarily trying to be sort of on this high horse or social impact. That part doesn't really work with consumers. So I think that some of that is the biggest learning I've had.
Yeah, that's almost like a learning from Climate Tech 1.0 or Clean Tech 1.0 to where we are today. I was just in San Francisco for like the Energy and Climate Club trek, and all the people we were talking to is that our products have to be better, faster, cheaper, and then also good for the climate. You can't just be good for the climate. There has to be sort of better, faster, cheaper. In this case, cheaper for the consumer and better from an experience perspective to actually make it be a viable business. So I think that's one of the learnings that I'm continuing to take away from all of this. Speaking of learnings and being an MBA podcast, I'm always curious to sort of talk to and hear from founders of, say you don't come from a super technical background and you can't be writing the computer vision models or the AI models for this. What is sort of like the role of business people in a startup like this? And how do you recommend people sort of get into like an early stage startup?
To be fair, I haven't written code in about 15 years. So it's been a very long time since my computer science degree. I've been on the business side since then. It was very interesting because when I started my journey, I knew I wanted to do something in climate. I was very inspired by my own children who are now 12 and 14. But I had also that same doubt, which was like, okay, what value can I add? There's all these in climate, you need hardware, or you need all these different items. I went to a climate draft happy hour. I strongly recommend climate draft to everyone to look at. And I met all of these amazing innovators. But when I kept talking to them, I kept hearing the same story. When I was like, how are you going to talk to the consumer? I just kept hearing, it's like, oh, I'm going to tell them that my product is net zero. All I kept thinking was like, the consumer doesn't care. Really, it was a matter of you have all of this innovation happening. You have all this scientific, real discovery happening. But it's like, how do you marry that to think about who you're targeting, what the distribution is, what the business model is, and really pairing with a scientist? I think business people need to do that. And I think the scientists need the business people to do that. So I would say if you're up for it as a business person or the business student, go talk to a bunch of these innovator labs, talk to scientists, and try and figure out, is there a good founding opportunity? Because having a co-founding, we have a pretty large founding team of 5 of us, but one of the members is a chief scientist and another is a really strong engineer. There's a group of us that we paired together to start this company.
In terms of looking into 2025, I kind of want to move towards our closing thoughts. Is there any particular trend, whether, outside of HomeBoost, just like in the market that you're particularly excited about, or I guess like a product release that you're particularly excited about for HomeBoost?
I know it's a little bit trite at this point to say AI, but it's like, I can't help it. It's just so damn exciting from my perspective in terms of all the innovation that's happening so fast. We're obviously using some of the more traditional AI with computer vision, but we're also quickly using all the LLMs. We're using the AI to create these personalized videos. I mean, it is just so rapidly changing both the product you can deliver to a customer, as well as how we work inside our company, whether it's for marketing copy, whether it's for content, whether it's within our engineering org. It's the innovation is happening so fast on the AI side that I know that's the answer everyone would give right now, but it's really hard not to give that answer.
Sure. Moving into the final question, what is the best piece of advice that you've ever received?
I'm going to go into the Wayback Machine for the best piece of advice I ever received, which was from my own father. When I was doing Evite, I was still a student and I was really debating whether I should go to the job fair. And my dad said to me, I called him and I said, what should I do? And he said, you should always consider 3 things when you're making your decisions about a job. It's like, are you working with amazing people? Do you love what you're working on, like the product and mission? And do you feel like you're learning at a rapid rate? And I've let those 3 pillars of people, mission, and learning guide my entire career. and kind of making that decision of when it's time to start something new, when it's time to stay where I am. I'd say that's the best piece of advice I ever received.
That's a very good piece of advice, especially given that myself and many others probably listening to this podcast are looking for jobs at this point and trying to decide where to go and what to do. So very timely and relevant for the audience. So, well, this has been incredible. Thank you so much again for joining the podcast. I really enjoyed sort of doing this and learning more about HomeBoost and what you guys are doing.
Thank you so much, Julian. Thank you for having me on.
No worries.